load up, restream. Charmant, let's go ahead and load up what we're going to be working on today. So, it's been a while. We're under streaming, avatar, scene. Let's see what we got in this file. So, we go in here. And we have our main character here, and then our subtools here. Up here at the top of the subtool, you can do a visible count. And you can, let's hold on just a second here. And you can organize it. So we got our Aang ready to go, and then we got also ready to go. So I did a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit of Marvelous Designer. I have that recorded, so I'll go ahead and post that on YouTube once I finish this thing out, which hopefully will be today. And hopefully the audio's okay. Yeah, it looks alright. Okay, so I'll go ahead and turn this off. So, let's get started. There is one thing I need to do, and that's, if you see in here, I have a head and I have a body, and ideally those would both be together. They don't have to be together. If I'm going to go and pose this out, this would be just fine to go and like pose the head and the body separately. But it's a little, if I did have to do a version where, let's say he didn't have his shirt on and stuff like that, he's going to fly around and, there's some scenes like this, then I would be kind of stuck with this here, which isn't ideal. So let's see if I can't sew his head onto his body and come up with an elegant solution to where I can maintain all of that detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I have everything organized into folders here. I'm going to take his body here. I'm going to hold down Shift and bent up arrow to shoot it to the very top of my stack, and then same thing for the head. I'll hold down Shift, turn off the eyeballs, and now I just have his head and his eyeball visible. So I can go ahead and start thinking about how I want to merge these things together. Now, if it was simply just a matter of, hey, this head, actually, does he even have, he doesn't even have a interior his mouth, so it's not even that big of a deal. If we hadn't done all of this work, which again isn't difficult work to make changes to or to redo, if you've watched the previous episodes, there's not a whole lot going on here, so if I had to lose this work, it wouldn't be a big deal. But ideally, I'm going to kind of keep this work. So I'm going to go through and count these neck spans, which are kind of heavy, which is okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and maintain this geometry and sew it onto some new geometry on the body. Because if you look at the body, actually his body's not bad either. This, I think, is just the original Nick Z body mesh. If you go into comma here and you go into tools, you're going to see you have the Nick Z humanoid. That's basically what I started with. So what I might be able to do, this one has 3 subdivision levels, this one has 4. Go lowest, go lowest. Let me think about this. I might be able to simply, just sew these up. It won't be pretty, but if I wanted to maintain subdivision history, let's try it. Let's give it a shot. So I've got this one here. I'm going to go up to subdivision level 4 here, and I'm going to, actually, what am I going to do? Let's try this. Okay, so I'm going to mask everything out on my scene. Let's try this. Okay, let's go into polyframe. Let's hold down Control Shift. Let's go into select lasso. I'm going to hold down Control Shift. I'm going to isolate this bottom ring here. Or actually, this has a whole polygroup down here, so I can isolate this, do Control Shift X to expand, and then Control Shift drag to invert that selection, and now I've got this sitting here. Now, if at this point I go through here and I say delete hidden, it'll let me, and then I can go back up, but it is going to soften any details that I had. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to have this here, do Control Shift X to expand, Control Shift drag. I'm going to mask this, Control Tap, and then if I do a delete hidden, and then actually let's go up to subdivision level 4, delete hidden, or let's say delete lower, delete hidden, and then reconstruct. That'll give me my subdivision history back, and then I've got my high-res geometry where nothing changed, and then I've got this sewn along here. So now I've got all this geometry, and I'm good to go. So now if I want to sew these two together, I'm going to do the exact same thing along here. So let's see if I can't just do this. So We've got our body here. It's got subdivision history, and I just need to get rid of this top neck section here. So let's go down to subdivision level 1. Again, let's isolate this here. It's going to grab this polygroup here, do Control-Shift-X to expand. Control-Shift-Drag, go to subdivision level 3, mask it, delete lower, delete hidden, and then reconstruct. Let's go all the way to the top here. Let's go ahead and hit divide one more time. So now we have 4 subdivisions for this one, 4 subdivisions for this one. So now if I go down here to subdivision level 1, I wonder if I can I think I should be able to merge these and free subdivision levels. Yeah, let's give it a shot. So we've got 4 subdivisions between each of these. This is getting a little bit weird. You could also just Dynamesh these or Boolean these and then reproject history, but I'm going to try and do this real quick. So got a head, we got a body. Let's go down here to merge down. And when I merge down with subdivisions, even if it didn't have the same amount of subdivisions, it would still merge. It would just take the one with if you have a subdivision level 3 and subdivision level 4, when you merged them, it would go down to subdivision level 3, because below that you would only have triangles. So now we have 2 objects here, and they both have subdivisions. So if I want to sew these up, I can go over here and I can do free subdivision levels. That'll drop it to subdivision level 1. And I can go through here and I can merge these verts. I can also try and do a, let's go to BC, curve bridge. And on this one, you're going to need to make sure that under stroke, curve functions, you have border highlighted. Not that it is by default, but just in case. Hold down Shift, and that'll go ahead and sew these up. It didn't do a great job. Well, since we have low subdivision level history, what we can also do, and we also have X symmetry turned on, a couple of different ways we can do this. We can go through here, and with our Z modeler brush, BZM, we can go through here, and we can just manually go through and sew these together. Yes, I am actually sitting this morning. I got a KVM switch that I'm a little nervous of. I've got 3 boxes that are all connected together to 1 KVM, and I don't think these wires are going to stretch that far. So I could move them up, but I was too nervous. I didn't want to pull a very expensive KVM off my desk and then have the wires get weird on my monitors. So it's getting comfortable though. Another thing we could do, we could also do a stitch 2 points. So I can go through here and I can just kind of stitch these points up. So back and forth, back and forth. No matter what though, this is probably going to be pretty boring. I'm trying to think of another way we could bridge these two. I guess we could try, we can go close, nope. Let's do, it's called, sorry, my brain's a little bit gone still. We're going to, it's an edge action, and we're going to not stitch a hole. We're going to bridge 2 holes, and spline should be fine. So we're going to go here to here, and then I'll go ahead and bridge these 2 together, and boy, that worked pretty well. So we're actually going to go here to here, and then we're just going to make sure we just have just 1 here, and then we can go through here. We can say insert single edge loop, hold down Alt, and there we go. So now these things are stitched together, and it also looked like it did something weird with my material selection. That's okay. We can take the startup material and just select this one, and then up here under M, go color, fill object, and that's going to fill with that selected material there. And if we want these to be the same polygroup here, we can just select both those, hit Control W, and that should make them, hold on, turn on, oh yeah, we still have, I'm going to turn off this paintbrush for now. So this polygroup, you're going to see it's now the same polygroup, and I think that'll work. So I'm going to go through here really quickly, turn off X symmetry, hold down Shift, oops, keeps X symmetry on, hold down Shift, and we're just going to ease that transition between these 2 objects. So we're still in freeze transformation mode. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn off freeze subdivision levels, and that's going to rebuild my subdivision level. So now I'm back up to subdivision level 4. I've got all my details back, and then I have this geometry that needs to be a little bit cleaned up. And that's okay. So we're going to go down to subdivision level 1, and we're just going to kind of smooth this out. Go up to subdivision level 2, smooth this out. 3, smooth this out. 4, smooth this out. There we go. So we didn't have to remesh, we didn't have to do project history or anything like that. Stack's a little bit long. Let's see if we can't. Let's go to sort of level 3. Fix that a little bit. He's got a little bit of a discrepancy between his neck and his body here. And again, I'm not overly concerned. If I was going to go and do a, I probably might need to just lower his body. Let's go ahead and turn his poly paint back on, his little colorize here. We're going to hit C to sample, and then with our standard brush here, we can turn on RGB, or you can go to B, P, and just use your paintbrush. We'll go through here, and we'll go ahead and close this up. But yeah, I would definitely do a pass if I'm going to do like the shirtless version or something like that, a different costume. Go through and kind of clean up his anatomy a little bit. But let's hold down Shift and turn on all the eyeballs, and now we have him all the way back here. And I'm going to go through his clothing really quickly and just kind of make sure his clothes are out. And I know that was kind of boring, but get that on there. Cool, yeah. Connecting the edges was a Z-modeler operation. And there's a couple different ways you can do this, but for example, we have a cylinder here. Let's go back to our startup material, and let's say make polymesh 3D. And the cool thing about bridging two holes is that it doesn't even need to be the same. Like if you wanted to, you could say, okay, I'm going to take, hold down Alt and just paint here, and then we can say delete a single poly, and then we can say bridge two holes, so here and here. And it'll bridge, and you can use spline or you can use circle. There's a lot of different options in here, round corners, arcs, all that stuff. Also, if you wanted to, you could be like, okay, this one is going to be long, and this one's going to be tall, or a completely different shape, and you could it'll still figure out how to bridge these two pieces of geometry for you. So, bridge is super cool. Like I said before, there's a couple different ways to manually do that, but that seemed to work in our case. Go ahead and delete that. There we go. So we got our character ready to go, and everything I think is remeshed. So one thing I do want to have if I'm going to be posing this guy is subdivision history on everything. It doesn't have to have the same level of subdivision history. It just needs to have subdivision history. So I'm going to go through here, the pants, and the shirt, and the cloak, and the little neck thing up here. All looks like it does. His eyebrows don't. Those are just dynamic subdivisions. Same thing probably with his arrow. Yeah, but I can always apply those before we go and sculpt. Now another thing I'm going to fix is this right here. So RGB turned on. I'll tap his head here, C to sample. That was a little bit, I'll make this a little bit more skin toned as opposed to just pure black. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to crank up my laser radius and then turn laser radius off. And we'll take our RGB intensity down a bit. And I'm just going to darken that up. So here, and then maybe along the ear as well. We'll cut, and we'll do a maybe kind of a ruddiness pass. Let's drop that RGB intensity down, and we'll go ahead and look at my reference here. And this is the reference we're using, by the way, is something like this, or what we're going to be matching today is this shot right here. So we're going to go ahead and start building the bad guy out, which we have the pieces for. I just have to go through and do it. So I think this will work for now. All right. So get this all set up here. And if you want to, you can take this and drag this right back into this folder structure here. We can collapse this folder down, and then we have Aang in here, and then again we have Co. So we can turn this on, and here's all my Co pieces. Let's go in here and I'm going to hold down Shift and turn off Poly paint for everything, or colorize for everything, I should say. And we'll go ahead and start posing this out. So this, I'm just going to leave him kind of standing here because luckily he's not going to require a whole lot of posing, which is fine. It's not a big deal. And then this one, Ko right here, we're actually not even going to have to pose that much. This is basically, we're just going to, I think we're just going to kind of match this. You know what I'm going to do? Let's go in here, texture, import. I'm going to grab reference, and we'll use this as a guide. So we've imported this texture. I'm going to add this to Spotlight, and that was just underneath here, and this little on and off button. By the way, if you need more resources on like, oops, sorry, hold on. Spilled water, and now my mouse is sluggish. So if you're kind of new to ZBrush, here you can go to my YouTube channel, and on my playlist here, there's a new Intro to ZBrush playlist that'll get you kind of caught up on like, that's just the very, very basics. And there's a ton of stuff on my YouTube channel that you can check out. Of course, you can also check out Pixologic's channel, which is where I'm streaming now. And also my ArtStation page, this is a little bit more broken down into a bunch, like what's new in ZBrush 2018, all that stuff. So this might help you if you need like some of the basics. You can check that out. And then let me also get you the link to Pixologic's channel or my previous stuff on this channel. So if you wanted to go back and watch like, hey, how did you make this part? You know, Ko, for example, you can check out my previous streams on that link and get caught up. Cool, awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Dima. And we're going to go through here. Now we're going to drop this opacity down. So we've got our Spotlight open, and we've got this. We're going to drop our opacity, and we're also going to make the size a little bit smaller. So we're going to take this scale and just kind of scale this down here. So this is essentially the scene we're going to make. So if I back my camera off here, I can go ahead and match him up. Let's say he's going to be about this big. And this will work, so I might need to tilt his head back and, you know, move his arms, but that's essentially where this is going to go. If I do want to go ahead and save both the spotlight and the camera angle, you can totally do that. So what I'm going to do is I can go in here to Movie, Timeline, Show, and this is going to be my timeline, and you can actually like animate your camera through ZBrush. But I'm just going to steal this one frame, so I'm going to go ahead and just click in here, and that's going to set a keyframe. And I don't need to see this. If you want to, you can actually like, you know, scrub through here. So if I ever move my camera and I'm over here and I'm sculpting and I want to go back to this, all I got to do is just, you know, scrub back and it'll snap back to here. Of course, you can also just use your arrow keys. So when you're over here sculpting, and then you can do your arrow keys, it'll snap back to that keyframe. So that's why I can just turn off Show. And this is my custom menu over here. Again, if you can go to that link I just sent out, that Intro to ZBrush. No, it's called Concept, ZBrush for Concept and Ideation. But it's the new Intro to ZBrush, the first 50 videos that'll show you how to do custom menus and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll snap this here. Oh, but we also want to go in here to Movie, Timeline, Save. And we're just going to save this right in our reference folder. And I'm just going to keep it, say, ZBrush Movie. And then over here, we're going to go over here to our texture, and we're going to say Save Spotlight. Same thing in our reference folder, we'll save the spotlight right in there. So if ZBrush crashes or we need to restart ZBrush, we can really quickly just get that information back and put it right back where we need to. Now let's hit W, and I'm going to go over here to Move Multiple. You're going to see Ko is unhashed and Avatar is hashed. So I'm going to do is hold down Control Shift and drag. That's going to unhash everything. And then Control Shift, let's go back to Select Rectangle. Control Shift Tap will hash everything. And if I just want to move these subtools, I can just make these unhashed. And now I can just move all of these subtools into place. And it's actually scaled pretty dang good. So I think this will work. Now, at least for the front half of her body. The rest of her body, we have some pieces we're going to play around with. So we're going to turn off Move Multiple, Shift Z. So Z is to bring Spotlight up, and you have your widget. So you can go through here and you can, like, you know, do your opacity and a lot of cool stuff you can do in here. And then Shift Z to turn all that off, and then Z to bring it back, and then Z to go into paint mode and sculpt mode. So those are the hotkeys for that. So you get everything kind of lined up, and I think we're kind of ready to go. there might be some modifications we need to make. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit just so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. Again, I'm using Quadro reference viewer, so I have around my screen I have a bunch of reference from this shot, so I can like go through here and I can kind of see how the body is composed really quickly, and that's this here. You can get it for free. You can check this out if you want. If not, no big deal, but that's what I'm using. So back to this. Okay, so I've got my body pieces here, and these are just super basic little chunks. It's like a shell, and then a little meaty body, and then the arms here. So we'll go ahead and detail these up as we go. Now, before I start detailing them up, I have to think about how I want to put this body in kind of the spiral shape. There's a couple different ways we can do that. We can do array mesh, and we can use nanomesh. We can do a combination of both of those. So I also have a stalactite kind of hanging down here as well. So let's go ahead and put that in my scene so I can at least start posing this body up. So again, I'm going to snap here, and then I've got a cone hanging down through here. So let's go ahead and just add that. So I'm going to say append a cone 3D. We'll just take this cone and we'll rotate it around. Just hold down Shift and we can snap it. And then now we can literally just scale this out. And then we'll do a uniform scale and then scale it up. And then there we go. We've got our placeholder stalagmite. Stalactite is up. I forget. And that'll work, I think. So we've got that. So we were going to need to take this body and wrap it around. Now if I take this and I crank the opacity up, this goes back a little far. So I'm going to modify that just a bit. Boy, that's some... It's a very dark scene, so I'm just trying to see. It looks like it goes out and then just kind of stops. Also looks like it's a little bit furry, so that can be kind of fun to do. At the very end is just add a little bit of kind of gross fur here. So let's hit W, and I'm going to hold down Alt and tap on that subtool here. We're just going to non-uniformly scale this in just a bit. Same thing for this one. So let's go ahead and reset it to our camera view, and I'm going to go to the front here. The front I don't want to change that much. I just want to kind of scale it along that axis there. And I think that'll work. And then usually if I'm going to go through and use my move brush, these have dynamic turn on, so I can just do Shift D, and then I'll go back to my original, and then I can go through here, and I can kind of use my move brush. And you know, I'm going to keep scaling this in. I think it's got to have enough room for these four legs to kind of plug into it. But I'm also going to kind of move this back a little bit so it's kind of that shape here. And then on this bottom piece here, same deal. And then we'll go ahead and move this towards the front a little bit. If I want to, I can also protect this. Let's go in here to hold down Control, Mask Lasso. I'm just going to grab this, Control Tap to kind of blur that out. And then now it's going to leave these front pieces alone. So as I'm moving this around, I can go through here and I can kind of make this a slightly different shape. All right, I think that'll work. Cool. Let's see. I just had the polypaint colors and leaving just the clay. So that's going to be your colorize over here. So you can see this little polypaint thing here. If I turn this on, any vertex color you've done, any polypainting you've done will show up. If you hold down Shift and turn that on, it's going to turn on polypaint and materials for everything. So if you open these folders, you're going to see these all have little paintbrushes here. That's just under your polypaint. There's a little colorize button, so you can turn colorize on and off, or you can just turn this paintbrush on and off, and you can hold down Shift and turn paintbrush on and off for everything. It's a little bit faster. You can also, underneath Z plugin subtool master, there's a fill option. You can go through here and it'll do it to all visible subtools. You can turn on or off color or material or both, but it's a little bit faster just to hold down Shift and kind of do that. Small problem when I work in mini landfills, when I try to do it, UV map, the program crashes. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on your, I think, your poly count, and also making sure you, like we were talking about before, if I go over here to my subtool and I do all low, you're going to see I can drop down to a low-res version of everything. And in fact, if I go down here and I do a merge visible, my entire scene is only 47,000 polygons, which isn't too bad. So if I wanted to UV everything in this scene, it would probably do a pretty decent job. Now, if I didn't have subdivision levels, so if I do a delete, and let's say all of this was Dynamesh or very, very high resolution meshes with no subdivision history, so I'm going to go over here to all high, and I'm going to do a merge visible. And then I go here, you're going to see now I have almost, it's 2.5 million points. So at this point, it would probably crash. Trying to UV millions of polygons is going to be a tall order. But if you have subdivision history, you can UV the lowest, copy those to anything with subdivision history. You can use UV Master, and then UV Master should be fine. If you ever need quick and dirty UVs just to capture color information, also remember you have these UV options. So your UV, what does it create? UVC, UVB, UV tile, all this stuff. And this will do like if you have a very complex mesh, this I think will do an okay job. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be unwrapped or pelted or anything, but it's usable just to capture color information. Cool. Hey, everybody. So yeah, that was Z and then Shift Z for your spotlight. And if you want to know more about that, that was kind of updated in. I mean, I got the basics. What was that on? That was ZBrush 20. What was the one with? I'm trying to remember what the one with the new punch through the spotlight booleans, which was kind of neat. ZBrush 2019. What's new? Give me a second. Cell shading, bunch of cell shading stuff. Boolean snapshot 3D. So yeah, if you go to ZBrush 2019, what's new? You can see there's here's Spotlight Basics and then Snapshot 3D. So you can actually use Spotlight to project geometry and then use that to Boolean together some very cool stuff. We're just kind of using it for reference viewing. A lot of different ways you can match reference in ZBrush, but that's just one of them. Hey, it's on sale. But you can go through here and you can check that out. So here's ZBrush 2019, what's new. And that'll give you kind of a basics of Spotlight and some of that Boolean functionality. Cool. I don't do face rigging. I do blend shapes, but I have people that are much, much smarter than me that handle the rigging at work. How to copy the Z-sphere rig to the same model but subtracting some subtools. We might get into that when I go to pose this week and maybe talk about that. Oh, cool. Yeah, I actually, that's right. So on the ZBrush channel, I have this workshop here. Then I also on my channel, so first Tuesday of the month, I'll stream here. First Thursday of the month, I actually missed, but I'm going to stream this Thursday. Here's my live stream full episodes here, so you can see this whole playlist. So this is the other half of anything you may have missed, because I switch back and forth. So here's another couple hours on, making this stuff. So if you want to check out my previous live full episodes, you can go to this playlist here, and that'll get you caught up on any of that stuff. But really, like if you're just new to ZBrush, I would start here. This intro to ZBrush. ZBrush for ideation, and then also, I do have some intro to ZBrush stuff down here. It's a little bit dated, but there's some fun stuff in there too. It's a little bit different. Releasing a new course on Gimmer anytime soon. An affordable version of your CGMA course. The affordable version is just you can do this intro to ZBrush for ideation, and then just Google anything you need. It's organized, which is nice. But yeah, that would be the cheaper version. Just Google it. There's nothing hidden or secret in those videos. Did you get fat in the lockdown? Yes, I've definitely put on my COVID-19. Cool. Yeah, so let's get this guy posed out. So we've got this going, and I think we've got this shell right here. So what I'm going to do is it looks like this shell kind of comes down a little bit. So I'm going to go through here and let's go ahead and select this. I'm going to move this down and then maybe kind of pull this out a little bit. So this shell is going to be kind of that shape, and it's going to go over this shell here. So I'm going to kind of push this in. And I can always go through and I can change this however I need to. And I'm also going to hit D for dynamic. And I'm going to go through and let's do a crease level of 1 just to kind of soften these shells out just a little bit. So under here we have geometry, dynamic subdivisions, and then crease. And then between these in my custom menu here, I can go through here and set my crease level and smooth subdiv. And I can do D and then Shift D, and that goes from like just low res geometry to smooth geometry as a preview. So we'll go ahead and use that to our advantage. And then this, we'll go ahead and keep this nice and overlapped here. So now let's get to this body. So we've got all these body pieces here, and now I've actually got to use my brain. So give me a second. How do I want to do this? So basically I have a path along here. I want to place these objects. Now if I'm going to do this the non-destructive way, or a way where I can actually modify the geometry on one and then instance it around, I'm going to have to use either Array Mesh or Nanomesh. Array Mesh is cool, but I might not be able to get exactly what I need, so I have a feeling what I'm going to do is Nanomesh. Nanomesh might be a little bit difficult because it's not super straightforward. These might be a little bit complex. Another alternative is I do go through and I make it detailed first, like the little segment pieces. Basically go through all these segments and like detail one segment out, and then when I go through and I can just duplicate these out and then just model them as needed. But I like the non-destructive aspect of Nanomesh, so I think that's what I'm going to do. So let's get this. That's weird. Let's get this shape going. So let's go through here, and there's a lot of different ways you could do this, but one easy way, I'm going to go here to append a Z-sphere. And I've got a Z-sphere sitting right in the middle of my screen. I can also turn on X symmetry if I want to like go across X symmetrical axes here, X symmetry. But in this case, I don't want X symmetry because I'm going to be wrapping this around. So what I can do is I can go through here to the back and then just make a new Z-sphere, and I can just move this into place. I can hit Q and I can add a new one. So Q is draw mode here, and then I can hit WER and I can use this to move, scale, and rotate these things around. But basically I'm just going to hit W and just use this. So I can hit Q, and again I'm just going to go down here and I can, you know what, I can position this right on the back end here. And then any of these places in here I can just hit Q and then W, and again just kind of move these into place like so, Q, and then so now this is the basic overall shape that I'm trying to get. And I can convert this to geometry and you can use this as a path eventually, but now I need to actually make this wrap around. So from this view, let's go ahead and turn on transparency with ghost over here on the side. Your transparency might be down here. I've changed my interface just a tiny bit. And we're going to move this out. So this is going to go here, and it's going to wrap around to this other side. So I'm going to hit Q, and then move this over. So now we can kind of start to wrap this shape here all the way around. So here we'll hit Q and then W. Oops. W here, and we'll go ahead and wrap this around, and then again we're just going to add more pieces. So Q, go into draw mode, W to go into move mode, and just very quickly just kind of wrap this shape here, and then this looks like it might go back a little bit here, so I'm just going to move these back, then it kind of tilts down a little bit maybe. So this is the overall shape, and then it kind of cuts off here, but I can that's about it. I hit Q and then move this. Oops. And it is set up in a hierarchy chain, so if you wanted to, you can actually use this for posing. You can set up a, let me see if I have that. Yeah, you can, yeah, there we go. So this one is if you want to use like Z-spheres for posing.
Edit mode. I think 3 hours worth of content.
Let's see if I think I do. Yeah. So you can use this for posing entire, in this case I pose a dog, but you can use this for humans as well, which I think I also do. I don't know that we'll actually use Z-spheres for posing, but if you want to, you can check this out. And okay, so this is coming around and this wraps around here. So I think I've got the path that I want this to follow. Actually, let's make this a little bit more dynamic. So it's kind of like this kind of sweeps down a little bit here, and then this kind of sweeps over. Let's see if that feels any better. If you wanted to check out, you can also go in here to your preferences, thumbnail, turn on your thumbnail, turn on silhouette, and you can actually kind of go through and kind of evaluate your silhouette. From the side view, this is basically what the silhouette's going to look like, so that's about right. And then of course if I want to check this, let's put this back into place, and then again, just make sure that this fits where I want to go with this, which is about right here. Yeah, this looks fine. Actually, that doesn't cut off. I just zoomed in too much. There we go. Okay, and then, oops, I'm going to hit Q and then Alt, and then that'll go ahead and delete Z-spheres if you need to. And there's my path. Let me, hold on just a second. I hit something weird here. There it goes. There we go. Back where we started. Okay. Let me get caught up here. Cool. Where are you from? Ukraine, Russia? I want to say Croatia. Way back in the day. Pavlovich. I think my name was spelled differently. Maybe a C with a little squiggle above it. I could be wrong, though. I'd have to go through my Ancestry.com and figure that one out. I can see only comments from Pixologic and other users. Yeah, it should be fine. What we're doing now is we have Twitch, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, so everybody's commenting from different channels, and I'm just reading it from one place. Would Curve Brush be ridiculous? No, not at all. And in fact, we'll talk about that as soon as I get a path going. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I might have to get a code for that. What's the best when it comes to posing Z-spheres or any other? Making sure you have subdivision level is the best thing you can do. Any tutorials about hair? I have a few. Nothing. That's not true. So I have anything. If you do the big search, that's going to get everything. Just on my channel though, if you just type in hair, there's here's some hair creation techniques, hair card creation techniques, sculpting hair, that kind of thing. And then also if you do fiber mesh. Actually, let's just do fiber. Here's some fiber mesh stuff, poly painting and fiber mesh and fur and stuff like that. So I've got some stuff on there. Cool. Yeah, there you go. Exactly that one. That C with that little notch above it. Like when I zero mesh plane or even snapshot geometry and spotlight, I get very distorted mesh, overlap points, etc. It can depend from zero mesh option or something else. It kind of depends. It kind of depends on what your source is, how that's going to handle the remeshing of that geometry. It's not magic. If it's really kind of weird geometry, it may not work that well. But we may run into that when I start doing some of this stuff too. So let's see if I hit, let's do Shift Z, and I'm going to hit A for Adaptive Skin. Now it looks like a low-res piece of geometry, but I'm going to polyframe, you're going to see it's actually a very dense Dynamesh, and I don't necessarily want that. So let's go down here to our Adaptive Skin properties. And again, we're in a Z-sphere, so if you're just joining us, if we hit A, that toggles Adaptive Skin on and off, and we have a Z-sphere selected. So over here, we have our Adaptive Skin properties. They take density down to 1, and then Dynamesh resolution down to 0, and then we preview. Now we're getting a very low-res mesh. If you want to, you can turn that density up to 2 and get slightly higher, but this is generally what I use. So now we just have a tube, and you can use this for, there's another thing we do in the ZBrush Summit 2018 series up here. There's 96 videos I did on this series, and it has a lot of controlling curve techniques in there if you want to check that out. But we're going to be using a couple of those techniques here. So to the insert IMM question is, yeah, you can definitely use IMM or put this along a curve, and we'll actually do that real quick. So I have this tube here, and that's going to provide us a path. So what I do is I'll go here to make adaptive skin. and then we have our Z-sphere sitting here, and then our adaptive scan is sitting out here by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and say append or insert. Insert's just going to put it right beneath, or append's going to put it at the bottom. This is going to do the same thing in this case. So we're going to grab the skin Z-sphere. So now that one's selected, it looks the same, but on this Z-sphere here, if I go into solo mode, I can it's still Z-spheres. If I want to keep this around, I can. I can just go through here and just make sure that eyeball's turned off, but I don't really need that Z-sphere anymore, so I'm just go ahead and hit delete. So with the skin Z-sphere, I want a single path along here. So I'm going to do is hold down Control Shift, and we're going to take these lasso and just hold down Control Shift and Alt and just get rid of these caps here. Geometry Modify, Topology, Delete Hidden. We can even hit Control W, make this all one polygroup. And now if I want a single path down this tube here, I can hover over this edge, Z Modeler Brush, BZM. We're going to do Polygroup, Polyloop. So tap that Polyloop, tap Alt, that'll give me a new color. Tap Alt, that'll give me a new color. Hold down Control Shift, isolate this, and now I have a single path I can go down. So I can say delete hidden. If you wanted to, you can actually smooth this out. Let's hit Control W, and let's go in here to your deformation, which is way down here. There's some deformation stuff in here. I'm going to use a polish by features. If there's no creases or polygroups, it'll just kind of just do a polish, and I can go through here. I can just kind of massage this into a nice flowing shape a little bit, so it's not doesn't have those kind of harsh angles through here. It's not a huge deal. You can actually use curves to smooth out those angles as well, but that's just an easy way to kind of do that. So we have our smooth tube here, and now we're going to go through here and we're going to say polygroup, polyloop, tap Alt, hold down Control Shift, isolate that one, geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Now we have this path. So if we did want to put this body down this path, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make this an Imm Brush. So how we're going to do that is, one more time, I'm going to go over here to all low. I'm going to do a merge visible. And then these are all going to be merged out here. The skin Z-sphere sitting out here, I can just leave alone, but this is the merged one I have. Hold down Control Shift. I'm going to grab all the body pieces, Control Shift A, and then Geometry Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. So now I've just got these here. I can still turn on X symmetry. We're still down the axis of our world, even though we're kind of have a scene set up. It's set up in a very static way, so we can still use this kind of functionality. So now if I want to repeat this, I need to make this an Imm Brush. So I'm going to, what I can do is I can actually rotate this so it's kind of straight. And now I need to decide when I insert this, do I want it to look straight at me, or do I want it to repeat kind of this way in this direction? So I'm going to say this is the direction I want to go in. So I'm going to hit B, create insert mesh, new, and I'm actually going to go and reverse that. I can go B, create insert mesh, append. So now I have two of these in here. So if I go through here, I can just start inserting these, or I can switch over to this one, insert these. I can also hit the M, as in Michael Pavlovich, and I can switch between these as well. Of course, if I want to make these into a curve, all I got to do is go in here to stroke. So you have curve functions, curve modifiers. Go in here to turn on curve mode. Let's go ahead and turn off X symmetry. And now, oops, go to our insert mesh brush, stroke. So I had standard brush turned on, so I'm going to go turn off curve mode for that. And then for our new insert mesh brush, go in here to stroke, turn on curve mode. And then now when I go through here, it'll actually repeat these. And if I want them to go the other direction, I can choose that other direction here. And there we go. So now it's going down the path. If I want these to be closer together, I got to go in here to stroke, maybe crank that curve step down a little bit. Also, let's go in here to brush modifiers. Let's turn off triparts. We don't want this to be a triparts brush. So now we can go through here and we can play around with that distance here. Stroke curve step 0.7, say try 0.6. Now we're just tapping that curve to update. And of course you can do any number of things. You can actually go in here to brush, BI brush insert curve and hit M, and you can turn this into a hose or a necklace or whatever you want. It's easy enough to do. And so that's kind of a simple way to do a curve brush. So, okay, I think this brush will work. If you want to save this, you can go in here to brush, save as, and I'm going to throw this. Let me drop those down here real quick. ZBrush 2020. Yeah, so you can go into your C program files, Pixologic, ZBrush 2020, ZBrushes. I just have a insert IMM folder in there. I think you probably do too. We can call this segmented body, and then we can always have this to pull from. Now, one of the things with this is you can see I'm using a low-res version of this, and that's by design. If I had like each one of these segments was 1,000,000 polygons, and then I wrap this around and it makes 70 segments, that's 70 million polygons it's going to try to make. And then depending on your computer, it can kind of chug or crash. We're on the AMD Ryzen Threadripper 3970X, so it's a 32-core processor. This one has 64 gig of RAM. If you want more information on the hardware stuff, I actually do have that on my YouTube channel as well. If you just go in here and say workstation. Come on, YouTube. This is the updated one. So this is the Gen 3. You can check that out if you like the hardware stuff. But so ZBrush is a very hard drive, RAM, CPU intensive program for a lot of stuff, for a lot of its processes. So, and I would say if you're going to get the Threadripper, Gen 3 is rock solid. I've had Gen 1 with the 1950X and the 2990WX with Gen 2. The Gen 3 that I have now is excellent as far as memory access and all that good stuff. No more NUMA nodes or anything like that. So depending on your computer, you kind of want to play it safe. Now, the problem with that is if you do have a bunch of low-res stuff, you're going to have to go through and sculpt on every single one of these to get them to update. Not ideal, but you know, if you're just kind of blocking something out, this is totally doable. So we're going to go back here with our brush, and we have this path here, so I'm going to go in here to stroke, frame our polygroup border, and then when I grab the brush here and we just kind of tap along here, it'll go ahead and update with that segmented body, and it's going to kind of wrap around this here, and the arms are only going to be on the front part of here, so I can go through and delete these arms, or I can put the arms in separately. And you're also going to see it's kind of down below, so let's go in here to depth, and we'll lower that depth and see. There we go. So it's going to kind of be in there. So I'm going to make the brush size big, and now you can see it's kind of wrapping this body around that curve here. You can also, in the reference, it goes from kind of beefy to a little bit thinner as it goes down the body. You can also control that. So we're going to go in here to our stroke. Let's take our stroke menu, grab that white dot and just drag it over into here to this divider. You just double click these little arrows here to open those dividers up. And what are we doing? Yeah, so here we're going to turn on curve modifiers. You have intensity and size and a fall off. So now with those selected, you're going to see it goes from thick to very thin. I don't want it to be that dramatic, so we're going to say I'm going to go from thick to a little thinner, and then we'll go ahead and update this. So now, there we go. Now if you also want to overcrank it, you can go down here to your brush modifiers, and you can say strength multiplier, so you can kind of crank that up a little bit. So this will be like 2x thickness along that axis. So you know what, let's take this strength multiplier, say 1.75. This would be pretty close maybe. And then if you want this to shrink down a little bit, you can also go down here and just kind of, let's make it a little bit thinner. There we go. So now we have this body wrapping around. Of course, the arms we can pose separately and stuff like that, but that's the basics of how I would start wrapping that body. Now you can also go in here on this curve. We have snap turned on, so it's going to want to snap to any surfaces. You can see kind of jumps and tries to snap. I'm going to turn snap off. Bend you want on. Also make your brush size what it needs to be. So now we can kind of go through here and you can move this curve around as needed. Now we have this curve here and we have our original plane. You can see the plane is actually masked. So as I'm going through and I'm making this body, you know, I'm doing it independent. And you can have this snap to different surfaces here. It's totally fine. In this case, though, I don't want it to really snap to anything, so that's why I turn snap off. But you can see how creepy that can be. Just like this little scene, kind of going through and just kind of pushing this along your scene here. Now, let's say this is what we want. So I'm going to go through here with my polyframe, and again, you can still see we have this kind of sitting here. So I'm going to tap away from my curve, and if you can't get away from your curve, you can still go into stroke here and just say delete. So now we've deleted our curve, but we still have the geometry behind. You can also go down here to visibility, and say, because the original plane is masked in here, you can say hide point, and that'll hide all your geometry except for your original plane. You can hold down Control Shift. Let's go back to select rectangle, Control Shift drag. That'll invert our visibility. And if you want to, you can say subtool split, and that'll go ahead and split hidden. And now you have that poly plane as a separate subtool. So it's kind of just sitting out here. We can keep that for later. And then you have your body here, and now you can go through and you can, do what you need to do. However, again, this is a little bit limiting as far as like if I wanted to modify one of these segments, nothing's going to happen to these other ones because it's just geometry sitting there. So what I'm trying to do is set up Nanomesh Planes along that path to see if we can't get something that'll work for us. It also looks like I flip these, so these shells should be on the other side, but you get the idea. That's the basics of that. And let me get caught up here. Yes, I'll upload this to my YouTube channel, and it'll also be on Pixologic's YouTube channel. Cool. Yes. Cool. Yeah, these legs do get pretty gross. I think they'll be fun. So now the cool thing about doing this first is you can kind of dictate like, hey, is this segment distribution about right? And I think it is. I think this is pretty close to what we're going to end up wanting anyways. So we can kind of use this as a guide for how I want to set up my Nanomesh planes. So let's go out of edit mode, hit Control N to clear our canvas, and let's set up some Nanomesh planes. So let's go in here to Polymesh 3D, just drag out this, and you can use anything for this, but this is already, you don't have to go in here to a primitive and then say make Polymesh 3D, it's already done. Initialize resolution of 1 Q grid will give you a polyplane grid, and let's go down here to display properties, turn off double so we know which side we're looking at here. Okay, so here is a plane. I'm going to hit B, create insert mesh new, and now I can go through my original scene here, and I can insert a plane right along here. Now, while I'm inserting this plane, it's coming straight at this camera. I can also capture that plane from the side view so that I can do that, but I can also just switch my view here and I can just say, you know what, give me a plane right here. Let's turn off solo mode. Let's turn off, hold down shift. Isolate this, so I can just put a polyplane along each one of these little segments here. I can also hit, you know what I might want to do? It's just a little bit difficult to see from the side. Let me think. Yeah, let's do this. And I can also use that original curve to go through and space these out as well. So we're going to take our polyplane here. Let's hit F. There we go. So we captured this one from the front. I'm going to capture this one from the side view, and we're going to say brush, create insert mesh, append. So now we have a side view one and a front view one. So back here we have this path, and I want to put a bunch of planes along this path because I'm going to use Nanomesh. So here, I think this will work. We're going to go back in here to stroke, frame mesh, or polygroups mesh, and then with our brush here, we have that selected, and we have that second one. Hit M. We can grab the second one, or just click the second one up here. So when we click on here, stroke, turn on curve mode. Also, always like to make sure I don't have, let's turn off dry parts. Not a big deal because we only have one polygroup, but just a good habit. So that one isn't what I want. Let's try this one. So that one goes from the side view. This one goes here, but they're not rotated. Let me think. Oh, that's why. Duh. Let's go back to our poly frame here. There we go. So with insert mesh brushes, it goes from bottom to top. So when we were capturing the segment and body, we had it facing upwards. So as it traveled through, it travels from top to bottom. Here I captured it from the side, so it was like this way. I'm going to capture it from this way. Create insert mesh, append. So now I still have curve mode turned on for the entire brush. So now with that one selected, I can go through, and now it's going to put a plane along here. And if I want to, again, center it, I can just drop this depth down, and then just keep dropping that down until it's kind of inside here. And then our brush size, we can go ahead and crank that up a little bit. Let's go out of solo mode and turn on transparency. So now you can see we're putting a polyplane along this axis, and I can use this as a way to kind of determine, okay, so inside of every single one of these bodies here, I have a polyplane, and I can use this to control where my nanomeshes are going to go. It's not quite, oh no, I guess that's about right. Yeah, that's about right. So now I have nanomesh planes kind of placed along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go add a transparency mode, back into solo mode. So I have these planes kind of placed along this axis here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our stroke and turn off curve mode. Nope, curve mode's fine. Delete our curve out of here. And on this one, if you want to just hold down Control Shift and isolate instead of doing hide point, you can do that. Invert that, and we'll go ahead and say split hidden, subtool split hidden. So now you got a bunch of planes in here. So now what we can do, we'll go back to, remember when we duplicated, we merged visible and then duplicated this off, we made an insert mesh brush. Now what I'm going to do is make a nanomesh brush. Now these arms I don't necessarily need, since the arms are really only on like the top and the side here, and then kind of on the butt. I just really need the segments. So I'm just going to take here, Control Shift A, we're going to say, let's say split hidden. And now we just have these segments in its own thing. So now when I go to insert this on my nanomesh planes, I'm just going to drag this out, and that's going to be what goes onto these planes that I've just placed. So I'm going to hit B, create insert mesh, new. And then with this one, we're going to here to brush, create nanomesh brush. So instead of an insert mesh brush, it'll be a nanomesh brush. So the cool thing about that is we go back to our original scene, and again, we have these nanomesh planes. Now, you know what? What I should have done is when I inserted those nanomesh planes is went ahead and put on the taper, because I can actually use nanomesh to control, as the planes get bigger or smaller, it'll make your nanomeshes bigger and smaller as well. Right now, all of the planes, as you can see, are all the same size. Now I can manually go through and make these bigger or smaller as I go, but that's going to be kind of tedious. So let's go back to here. Let's go ahead and delete these. This will just take me a second. Again, stroke, frame mesh, brush, insert mesh, M, grab that third one. Brush size is going to kind of be dependent. Let's see, M. Yeah, I think that's about right. Maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, and then over here again, oops, reset this, and we'll go ahead and make it so then again, as it's traveling down the curve, it's getting smaller. I don't need to get that small though again, so I'm going to kind of crank this up a little bit. So now it's going to get bigger. You know what, it might be easier to see this if we go down here to display properties, turn on double. There we go. So now you can see it's getting bigger to a little bit smaller. And again, let's go ahead and I don't know if I want to over crank, because that's going to throw off my proportions. So I want to keep these square, but I do want them to go from bigger to smaller. All right, I think that'll work. So one more time, I'll go in here to, the curve's already deleted, so we'll just isolate this out of here, and we'll say split. So we've got our curve to go back to if we need it. We have our new planes here, and then we have our body, Imm body, that we were kind of using as reference here. So, and we also have our brush that we made, that little segmented body thing here, sitting here. So we have that, and then we made a nanomesh brush with that segmented body turned into it. So now what I can do is I can go into solid mode. Here's my planes, again going from big to small. So let's go through here. Let's turn off, I guess we can keep double. Let's turn off double. And now we can go through here and insert these. Now if I want to switch these, you can see how it's, on this side of the mesh, you can see it, on this side it's not. It's easy enough. You can just go in here and hit flip, and then it just flips those normals. And then on here, we can say insert nanomesh on a single poly or all polygons or all poly groups. In this case, I'm going to do all polygons, but really any poly groups or all polygons would work. And now I insert this. The segmented body is going to go right along those planes. And let's go into our nanomesh properties. And in order for this to see how they're all the same size regardless of the plane size, let's go in here to fit. And now as they get smaller, Let's go in here to size. You're going to see, do they get smaller? Let's see, fill, fit. I think it's proportional is all the same size, and then fit should get bigger to smaller, but that's not. Here's the thing. So we can go through here. I can mask this, and I can go to Unmatch Mesh Center. So as I make this bigger or smaller, and I can move these in, I can manually go through and do that. So yeah, fit is what you want, and that's fine. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our placeholder for Imm Brush. So now if we let's turn everything back on, except for our placeholder here. So now you can see we have, and our little strip we don't need. So now we have a body here. However, these are kind of flipped upside down. So let's go over here to our Nanomesh properties, and let's do a, let's see, Z rotation, and kind of move these around here. And then we can kind of overcrank the scale a little bit if we want. And the cool thing about this is, if I want to go and modify this, I can go in here to Edit Mesh, go into Solo Mode, and then now I can go through and sculpt on one of these. So if I want to, I can say, you know what, let me take this, let's go into Move Brush, Brush, Auto Masking, and we're going to say Topological. Let's turn on Topological. You can also go BMT for Move Topological. We can just turn on those things. So now I can go through here, oops, let's turn on X Symmetry. So right down the middle here. So I can go through here and I can kind of modify this however I want. Or I can go through and like sculpt on this shell or sculpt on this little gross body part here and make any changes I want. And then when I go out of Edit Mesh, all of these will have been updated. So that's just an easy way to kind of go through and do that with Nanomesh. So now as I'm updating this, and I also have control over every single one of these segments. So I can go through here and move that plane and it'll go through and allow me to kind of adjust these. So I'm basically going to be able to sculpt, and then I can also go in here to move. If I have topological turned on, it's just going to grab one of these things as an instance. I can also turn off topological, and now I can move all these planes. So again, these are all instances. But if I wanted to like go through and rotate, I can grab like these here and invert that, and then I can just use my camera view to kind of rotate these segments and then move them in. And they're all just instances of each other, so it makes it a little bit easier to kind of go through. Let's kind of go through here and kind of. Now the thing about fit is it's also proportional. So if you go through and you like do a non-uniform scale, it'll kind of go. It'll let you do it, but it might not be the best thing to do. So here the belly kind of goes through here, and then these need to kind of rotate around. So that's going to be a little bit tedious to kind of go through and take these planes and kind of rotate them the way they need to be. So I can fix that, but let's focus in a little bit more on where these segments need to go. So I'm going to go through here, and again, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see there's a plane in the middle of here. That's really what I'm manipulating. If I turn on polyframe here, do I have a real one? Let's turn off transparency and solo. If I turn off Nanomesh, you're going to see I just have a bunch of planes sitting there, and I turn Nanomesh back on. Now I have this, and my real geometry is sitting inside of Nanomesh, allowing me to modify one piece of geometry that'll go through and be instanced along here. So I'm using these planes. If you don't want to see those planes, you can turn off Show Placement, and then I'll get rid of it. But I'm using these planes as kind of a way to, let's go through here and unmask this, is to kind of a way to go through and adjust these. So anyways, that was long, but let's see here. Where we see your portfolio, where we see what you've worked on. My workstation page, it's not all inclusive. This is mostly just personal work. I don't put a lot of professional work on here, but you can check that out if you want. It's also got a lot of, this is also organized into a bunch of videos if you don't like my YouTube channel playlists. These might be a little bit difficult to navigate, but this one's, if you go through here on any of these and then you click in the upper right hand corner, you can see all the videos kind of broken down. There's also some supplementary videos in there sometimes. Cool. Any tips for my large chatter? Best times to buy when I want to beef up my setup and celebrate with this PC? I don't know. Yeah, with tech, it's always one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna wait before I buy this because there's always something that's gonna come out in like 4 months or 6 months or next year, and that's the case. That's last 15 years I've been buying hardware. It's always been you know, waiting around for something to get the latest and greatest, and then something else come out is always one of those things. But you know, just got to take the plunge. Cool. There's a way to control the twisting of a single insert mesh along the curve. You can. I forgot about that. But good point. So if we go through here, and we have this original mesh here, and then we say, okay, let's go through here really quickly, and then we'll say stroke this again, and then through here, we'll grab our little gross body, and we'll tap here, and this will be here. So here this is, and we have a curve. You can also go through here. You can see it turns blue. That's our manipulator. So as I'm going through, let's turn off. Yeah, snap's turned off. So I can go through and I can kind of manipulate this along the curve. I can also go through here and I can actually, you can see that little rubber band that comes out. I can actually draw this and redraw that curve so it actually changes this. You can also turn on Liquify. So up here you have liquid and elastic. So if I take liquid, you can actually go and delete along a curve, or you can pull out along a curve. And then elastic is similar, but it keeps it kind of locked through here. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of go through and just continue to add segments through here. It's kind of neat, or delete segments if you want. But as far as rotating along here, you can see when I have when it's blue, when it's red, it's going to be my brush size. So that's going to make this bigger or smaller depending. However, when it's blue, that's just the manipulator size. So what you can do is, let's turn off liquid. So we can go through here, and of course we can make this whatever we want. We can kind of wrap this around and kind of stick this on whatever. So we have this, and then we can go through here and we can rotate these segments as well. So you can go, as you're going down this line, if you hold down Control, you can actually go through here and you can just start rotating along here. So it's like just go through and kind of rotate and twist along here. There's also something you can do that's kind of interesting. And if we didn't want to use Nanomesh for this, although if you had those Nanomesh planes, I don't know. You could probably do this too. But another thing you can do, it's kind of neat, is you can do as line, or you can just use a polyplane. We'll show both. So we have plane 3D here. It's going to make polymesh 3D. And so when we have this here and we have a curve, we can go through and just drag this along here. If you turn on as line, that'll just drag it into a straight line here. And let's, we keep the intensity on. So we'll go ahead and just drag this in a straight line. So we'll go ahead and tap. We'll go ahead and do again, a hide point and then split hidden here. So now we have these all along a straight line. So I'm going to hit W, and again, our gizmo is going straight down through the body. So we're going to go in here and we're going to do a bend curve deformer. So it's going to give us curve points. We're going to change that axis. So it's going down the axis. We're going to add some more points in here so we can get enough segments. So as we go through, we can actually use this to go through. And you got to be a little bit more careful with this to keep your points kind of curved along here and not get too zany as far as like stretching the geometry. But this is another way you can go through and kind of make a little segmented body kind of creeping along a point. And the cool thing about this one is you can go through here and you're going to see you have these different cones. So you have a squeeze, a scale, so you can go through here and you can okay, I want to scale this up, and then take this point here and scale this one up, and then down here maybe you want to scale this down or squeeze it. So you're getting this kind of look. And also on any one of these you can go through here and you can do a twist. So as you're going through, you can say, okay, I want to take this one, and as I'm going down here maybe to this point, I can take this and I can twist. I'm going to start twisting this around, and we'll go to this point, we'll twist this one around. We'll go to this point, we'll twist this one here. So you can kind of go through and you can use this twist deformer to kind of twist the body along the little middle axis here. And then you can go through here and, again, just kind of move these around to wherever you want. So that's another way you can do it. You can see the arms are kind of getting deformed, but the arms you can always put in separately. Or you can go in and fix them as needed. That's another way you can do it. Do you do 3D printing? If so, what machine do you recommend? I don't do 3D printing. I do have a 3D printer. Let me see what this thing is. It is a So my room's kind of messy here. Oh, it is Anycubic photon. Anycubic photon assembly instruction. So I have an Anycubic photon. It's still gathering dust because I haven't had time ever since the lockdown. And I can't complain, I still have my job and I can work from home, so all things considered, pretty sweet deal. But I have had zero time to do anything extracurricular. So, unfortunately, so that's the 3D printer printing part of it is one of those things. So that's the one I have. I can't really recommend one, but hey, John, late's fine. Yeah, exactly. We got some nice. Now it's good summertime. We're starting to get some interesting creepy crawlies here in Texas. Cool. Yeah, Joseph Dress. So yeah, we were talking about the Michael Pavlovich workshop here. If you go to the Pixologic Zbrush channel, you can do a search on their channel or even in videos. There's people who do like just straight up 3D, ZBrush for 3D printing. Let's do like a 3D print search. So there's a bunch of 3D printing stuff. And if you go to, there's another really cool one. This one. Hasbro Toys, there's a ZBrush Summit with Hasbro that kind of went through a bunch of, using joints and undercuts and the different kind of plastics they use for making these characters and stuff. So I can link you to that. That's a cool one to watch. At least I enjoyed it. Cool. Any tips to get your mesh to convert correctly from ZBrush to Fusion 360 to get a step file? Yeah, so on my YouTube channel, there is a Fusion 360 quick start, and then down under like video 12, I think, working with imported objects. This goes back and forth between like if converting to a solid body if you're just doing like box modeling. You can sculpt or you can box model in Fusion 360. It's just kind of a pain to do. It's slow. I haven't done it in a while, so they could have changed it and made it better. But if you go through there, if you're just box modeling, 12 multiple components. These are pretty dated videos too, but you can take anything that's quad box modeled, and then also if you want to just like concept in ZBrush and take that into Fusion 360 as like a 3D concept, you can do that. So you can see this is just a quad model that you can take in and make it a solid body in Fusion 360. And then you can make it, and then you can go through and do all your any cool creasing and any fusion stuff you want to do. And then you can also bring in like a triangulated mesh just for reference to kind of put your sketches on and stuff like that. So I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but might be worth checking out. Mesh to convert correctly from ZBrush to Fusion. Yeah, that would be the way I would do it. You can also export out of ZBrush as an STL file. I mean, Fusion 360 can take OBJs too, so it's not a big deal. There's a 3D print hub somewhere in here that has some extra functionality besides just export settings, I think, or I thought. Yeah, there's 3D print hub. So here's STL file, import options, size ratios, check mesh volumes, stuff like that. Export VRML, STL, export options. So maybe something in there might be worthwhile, but. Do you have a specific time when I'm holding back? Holding back what? How will you cut your character with cloth for 3D printing? Can you demonstrate? That I have no idea. That Hasbro link I sent out just a second ago talks a lot more in depth about that. I don't know. You know what? Maybe I will 3D print this. Maybe I'll get that set up sometime if I can take some time off. Cool. Is there a keyboard shortcut to grow hidden, like lasso hide and grow to hide the rest of the polys in the hidden polygroups? Yes, so I use that all the time. So if you go in here, hold down Control Shift, like if I want to grab this this segment and body out of here, I can hold down Control Shift and grab a little piece of both of those, like so. And I can do Control Shift A, which is visibility grow all. Oops, grabbed a little bit much. So let's go back to it. Let's go ahead and say delete all. here, and then we'll say here. So for example, got a solo mode here. Okay, let's see. Hide point. I forgot where I left off with this piece here, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at. Okay, so hide point. Say delete hidden. Stroke. Delete curve. So now I've got my piece here, and we can turn off polypaint on this one. Okay, so we've got this one, and then we've got our nanomeshes here, and then we got our original placement here, which is just kind of placeholder. Okay, so back where I started. So for example, if I wanted to say, you know what, I want to grab, trying to think if there's anything worthwhile in here. These are all, I also work a lot with just different subtools, but we do a merge visible. There we go. And we'll turn this off. So it's like, you know what, I want to grab all these shell pieces out of my scene. I'm going to hold down Control Shift and just grab a little piece of all of them and do Control Shift A. That's visibility grow all here. You can see Control Shift A. And then if I don't want to have the head, it's like, oh, I grabbed too much. Just hold down Control Shift and then Alt, Control Shift drag, Control Shift A, Control Shift drag. And now I've got all these segmented pieces out of here without having it, because like, you could say, well, I can go through here and you can say Control Shift and grab a poly group. But you know, if you have a bunch of poly groups, you got to go through here and grab a little piece of these poly groups. Control Shift drag, Control Shift A. Sometimes your poly groups will be duplicated, you know, in other areas. So you got to go through and grab these. Sometimes it's just easier to say, you know what, I want a little piece of all these. Control Shift A and I'm done. Or I don't want that. Invert, Control Shift A and I'm done. And that's visibility grow all. Now, if you do have, if I wanted to like say grab this top poly group and then that that ring around here, that's Control Shift, and then Control Shift X is to expand, or Control Shift S is to shrink. So you can keep hitting Control Shift S, or you keep hitting Control Shift X. And that'll expand. But then Control Shift A is just grab everything that's vert welded. Oh, my voice is getting dry. Sorry about that. So yes. Yes, I'm sitting today. I have a KVM with a shorter wire, so I'm a little bit nervous to try and stand up with those wires. Can you take a handwritten drawing and scan it into Zbrush to work off of? Absolutely. What we did was we went into Spotlight and added this. We got basically put, basically it's just you have a hand-drawn image you want to bring in. You know, you can just drag it into Spotlight. You can also just put it on your desktop and then do see-through, and then you can see whatever's on your desktop. Like if we had, you know, this is kind of sitting back here, we do see-through, and now you can use ZBrush as that. You can also use, if you turn on floor, you can use image planes in here. So if you turn on X, Y, and Z, you can add images to these floor planes over here underneath your draw menu. And you can say put images and crop them onto your floor planes. So a lot of different ways you can bring in your images and use them. Cool. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so moving right along, let's do a, you know what, let's do a little bit of tedious work. So I'm just basically going to get these, you know, when I drew those planes along here, I could have used like Nanomesh and used this to kind of rotate these around. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but I do want to get their scale a little bit closer to what I'm going to need to see. So again, I have polyplanes in the middle of all these segments. So what I can do is I can hold down Control and then Alt, and I'm just going to unmask this polyplane here. Let's say Control Alt scale, maybe. Let's see, Nanomesh. Go to Unmesh Mesh Center. Oh, I'm going to turn off X symmetry. Go to Unmesh Mesh Center, and then Q. Move scale, rotate. Why does it not want to scale? at all. Did I do something weird? Well, let's do this. Let's go in here to quick save, and that's 9 on your keyboard. And then I'm going to hit the comma key, quick save, and then just this last quick save, we'll go ahead and reload. Just don't know if I'm in a weird state or not. What did I do? Think. Why would I not be scaling? Oh, is it? Oh, there we go. Good call, Darling Arts. So when I was going through, what I usually do to unlock, if I want to like move my gizmo around, I'll just hold down Alt, and you can see when I tap Alt, it toggles between lock and unlock state. So I hold down Alt. Occasionally, what I'll do is I'll accidentally lock or unlock just by clicking that icon. So if it's locked, or unlocked, it wants to stay in pivot mode. So this is like allowing me to move and rotate my pivot, but it's not doing anything to the mesh. So now if I lock it, there we go. Thank you. Cool. Hey, Dan. Thanks for joining us. And okay, so let's go through here. I'm just going to very quickly go through and just start, since these are all nanomeshes, I'm going to go through and kind of make these things fit inside the body just a bit. So we're going to go through here and like this little segment here. And I can move these things around. I can also non-uniformly scale it, which is kind of like another reason why I like Nanomesh, is I can do some pretty wacky things with it and still keep it instance. So I think that'll work. Now some of these I may need to get rid of. So like if I go in here and I say turn Nanomesh off, you're going to see, you know what, and on this one too, let's just turn on double. That's under display properties, double, so I can see both sides. So you're going to see this is now huge, and it's kind of covering this one up, so I may not even need this plane right here. Let's also turn off our plane here. So if I want to, I can hold down Control Shift and then Alt, and then Geometry Modify Topology, delete Hidden, and that'll just completely get rid of some of these segments here. So I'm going to go through here, and again we'll go to Unmesh Mesh Center, and we'll go ahead and uniformly scale this and rotate it into place like so. And again, I'm just kind of keeping an eyeball on my reference here. And you know what, let's move this back here. So yeah, it's about right. And then as this is going around, these scales are going to kind of start looking kind of at me just a bit. And here's the thing too, is once I'm done kind of sculpting this, I can make this all real geometry, and then I will be able to go through and modify this on a per segment basis. So again, I'm just going to use this as a cue. Let's see, let's reset. Actually, let's go into solo mode here. Let's turn off Nanomesh and hit W and just tap right along here so that I can set this gizmo right along here. Let's turn off our floor and then turn the Nanomesh back on. So now I'm going to try and see if I can't. So we'll put it down this way here so we can. And you can see it's a lot more painful to kind of go through here and get what I want. However, it'll pay off when I start having to go through and update one and have it update the rest of them as I go through. The other good thing too is I can start getting rid of some of these segments. So I'm going to kind of mush this one in here. And if I update this one, I can always go through, and I'll have subdivision history as well, which will be good. So we have this, and actually I can use Dynamesh as well. Okay, that'll work. So let's go here, let's turn off Nanomesh off. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one as well, delete hidden, unmesh this one, W, go to Unmesh Mesh Center, and then turn Nanomesh back on, and then go ahead and, again, we're going to kind of rotate these as we go. Scale them up as we go. Make sure we're about where we need to be here. There we go. Okay, so here, and again, just kind of rotate these things around and scale them as needed. So now I'm not going to sit here and do all of these. However, as I'm working, I can go through here and I can start editing these meshes to make them conform a little bit. I can also go in here with my move brush, and we can go in here to topological. So now I can go through here, and with this poly frame, let's unmask everything. I can actually go through here and I can pull any one of those corners, and I can kind of manipulate this into the right area as well. So I can use this to kind of fine tune. Okay, so let's go into edit mesh here and go into solo mode, and you're gonna see, okay, here's kind of my little segmented thing, and if I want to, I can go through here and I can say, let's do a auto groups, and that gives me a new group, and now I can go through here and I can do Dynamesh. So let's go up here to Dynamesh. I'm going to turn off blur. I'm going to turn on groups. So when I Dynamesh this, it's going to keep these separate, so I can still have these as separate objects. They're not going to Dynamesh or stick together. And now I can go through here, and I can go through here. Let's turn on X symmetry, and we can go through and kind of start, making these plates a little bit more like they're supposed to. Now, instead of doing that, if I wanted to, I can also temporary, if I split these off, we're going to get into a subtool situation, so it's not going to be too great for that. But one thing we can also do is I can go through here and I can do like an insert. If I want to keep this shell nicer, I can go to insert, let's say multiple edge loops, interactive elevation. We can just pull along this polygroup here and maybe kind of round this out. And then when I hit D for dynamic, we can go through here. Let's do uncrease all. So now I can get kind of that look. And then here, we can do the same thing. But if I have this and I turn on dynamic and I go out of edit mesh, it's not going to update to this. I can turn on dynamic after I make it real geometry, but instances are going to show that dynamic stuff here. So go back and edit mesh, and instead of dynamic turned on, I'm just going to hit apply. So now I have real subdivisions in here. So now when I go out of edit mesh, now they've all been updated. So again, go back and edit mesh, and I can just start sculpting on this. So these all look pretty uniform. I'm going to hold down Control Shift A, and we'll go through here. Let's say BSH for our snake hook brush, and go through here and we can kind of make this back end a little bit more raggedy. Looks like the back does get a little bit raggedy, and then the fronts, I guess they kind of link into each other. Let's go out of edit mesh here. Yeah, that's about right. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to, clean these all up as we go. And let's go ahead and, these I can keep separate as well. Let's go back in here to edit mesh. Excuse me. And we'll take this one here. I have move with topological turned on. So I can go through here in the segmented body. Through here I can go through and kind of make whatever I want out of it here. So we're going to kind of fatten this up a little bit. And we go in here with our clay brush. Now the reason I'm not going into Dynamesh is because if I want to keep this geometry decent, I might be inclined to kind of Dynamesh this body, but I think we'll be okay. And really, it looks like it's not even like, this isn't like lumpy or anything. Like the bottom shell is actually pretty smooth as well. It's not boring, but to get it visually interesting, it might be a little bit difficult. So this shell, what we're going to do is we're going to isolate just a little piece of it, Control Shift A, mask and invert that mask. Let's go ahead and just run an inflate on it, just kind of thicken this shell up just a bit. And then over here, let's go into our pinch brush. We'll kind of just pinch this. You can also use the taper to form if you wanted to, but I think that'll work fine. And then we'll go ahead and hit Control D to subdivide one more time, and then BSH, and then again, just grab a little piece, Control Shift A, and we'll go through here, and again, we'll kind of or am I misreading that? Boy, look at that resolution. What I can also do is I can keep it relatively nice, and then and I can also go through just on an individual basis and maybe make the front ones raggedy and then kind of get a little bit nastier as we move along here. Let's go ahead and show everything. So now, as you can see, as we're sculpting, everything else is getting updated. And I suppose that'll work. I don't know how much more detailed I want to get with this. There's not a whole lot of detail. It's a cartoon, so they're not giving us a tremendous amount to work with. But man, too much talking. All right, let's just do this. Let's go into our Damien Standard brush, hold down Alt, and we'll kind of, you know what, let's Google something real quick just for some inspiration. You know what would probably be better is Centipede. Open link. Okay, so we're on Google here, and we're going to say tools, size, large. I just want large pictures of centipedes. We're going to click on this one, and we're going to say open link, image in new tab. There we go. So we can also hit Control Plus, and we can kind of zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so we can kind of take a little bit of a little cue from this, and we can kind of go through and maybe do a little bit of detail work. So we're going to take hold down Alt and just kind of pull along this ridge here, and we'll kind of just give ourselves a little bit of a kind of a little divot along here. And let's go ahead and hit Control D, and we're just using our Damien Standard to kind of go through here and maybe pull some divots along this shell here. Again, just kind of looking at centipedes and how their little segmented bodies work. It also looks like it kind of, you know, in the reference as well, it kind of looks like as it kind of maybe scrapes along here. If you hold down Alt, that'll pull up to a point. You can also use like your Orbs Cracks brush. This is something you have to go download. This is like a very Warcrafty brush. So in the Orb, you can Google Orb Cracks, but there's Brush LMNO. Or brush pack. This is the kind of thing where if you want to go through and put like a big slash through here, that kind of really super stylized armor Warcraft kind of looking stuff, that's a good brush pack for those. But all I'm really using at this point is Orbs Crack with maybe a little higher intensity you can go through, and that'll also another brush like this. If you go into the comic key under brushes, L10PQR is a RAM brush. And the RAM brush is kind of similar. You can use this to kind of go through and cut. Or also in your B menu, there's a Chisel Brush. You can make your own chisel points in here, but this is another good one if you have enough resolution. Let's drop that intensity down just a bit and go through and use those as well. But we'll stick with our Damien Standard for now. We'll go through here and we'll pull up a ridge and then kind of push in a ridge here. And then on this one, on the bottom, I'm just looking for like centipede bellies. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of like a little soft little shell, and underneath, kind of a nondescript little jelly looking thing. So, you know what? We'll add a little bit of detail. I'm not going to stress over it too much because we can go through and we can do what we need to do. So we can go ahead and maybe add a few just striations through here. I'm going to hold down Shift and turn down my Z intensity. And something like this. And then here's our little kind of nondescript belly here. And we have, again, move topologicals. That's allowing us to move these separately. You can also just Control Shift, isolate this, mask, and invert it. So you don't have to worry about move topologically. You just use your masking. But this will work just fine, I think. So through here, and then again, just kind of vaguely let's go through here and maybe use our clay brush. I'm going to go through and build this up here, like so. And then we say go out of solo mode and go out of edit mesh mode. So now you can see everything's getting kind of updated along here. Now, when I turn this into real geometry, I can get my subdivision levels back, and I can manually go through and move these segments around. I won't make you guys sit there and watch me do that, but on these pieces here, these have dynamic subdivisions turned on. So I would do Shift D. That's just going to show you, this is the real geometry, and then D is going to show you a preview of that. So what I can do is I can go ahead and say, you know what, let's go ahead and commit. So I'm going to say dynamic apply. So now we have real subdivision levels. We can still drop down like subdivision level 1 and like move these big shapes around if we want to kind of move these into place without having to worry about losing any detail. Then we can go back up to our subdivision level where we have our detail. We can totally do that. Again, I'm just kind of looking at this little gross guy's reference here. So we can go through here and we can say, go through here with our Damien standard brush, and we can hold down Alt and let go of Alt. And again, we can just kind of pull out some ridges along here. You kind of push in. Control D to subdivide. And again, if we want maybe a little bit more of a difference here, we can go through and do that as well with our Orbs Cracks brush. And then, you know, as you know, you kind of maybe want to do a little just storytelling with the texture. Not that you would necessarily always do that in ZBrush, but if you wanted to, you know, as she's kind of scraping through these tunnels and stuff, or he, or whatever a face changer is, I suppose it could be anything, you can go through here and you can kind of indicate that there's a little bit of wear and tear going along this little shell pattern here. Same thing for this one here. We can hit D for dynamic. Looks fine, and we'll go ahead and apply this. Let's go ahead and turn off. Looks like we have, maybe not. Looks dark in here. And this I can keep, you know, I can go ahead and let's drop down our subdivision level 1 here. And again, we can have this, we can make big movements here and then go up in our subdivision levels and get smaller movements through here. So that way, you get a little bit of a smoother transition through here. And then along the bottom here, we'll go ahead and, you know, kind of make it look like that kind of segmented fat body. And we'll go through here and we'll maybe inflate this back end up just a bit. And if we want, we can also say subdivision level 1, go through here. We can hit W and control tap this interior part, so we can actually go through and we can thicken out as we go back, kind of thicken this little shell out here so there's not any way to peek through, and then we'll go back up to our subdivision levels here. We can also use Claybuildup. We'll drop that intensity way down. We can use this to kind of, you know, let's go in here to stroke. You can turn lazy mouse on and change your lazy step. You can also go in here to modifiers and crank that roll distance up just a bit to kind of even out the stroke a little bit. You can use Claybuildup to kind of go through here and kind of give yourself some little ridges through here, then go back in with your Damien Standard or your Orbs Crack brush or your Ram brush or whatever, and just kind of go through and use your clay brush to kind of build this up and give yourself some little bit of visual interest through here. And along the back here, well, maybe we'll figure that out. But anyway, so that's how we're going to kind of detail out the body enough and kind of inherit some of that detail, and then we'll go through as a last pass and you know, get some of that going. Okay. How do you recenter your view? If you hit F, that'll frame. You might have a frame button over here. I got rid of mine, but it's just F to frame. You can frame the entire scene and then hit F again to zoom in on whatever your active subtool is. So if I have her face, I can frame the entire scene, then hit F again to just frame her face here. Your selected subtool. Alt tapping is going through here and selecting individual subtools. Cool. Yeah, so yeah, a little Alice in Wonderland. We can make her a little hookah. Yes, and so when you're, what I'll usually do is if I'm not doing anything major, you know, this is kind of primary and secondary reads, but yeah, you definitely, while you're going through here and detailing, if you turn off X symmetry, you can go through here and you can, you know, obviously break symmetry so it's not all symmetrical, and you don't even have to sculpt in symmetry ever if you don't want to. I usually do it just to save a little bit of time up front, especially when something's symmetrical in your reference. But I will be right back. Give me a second. Try not to knock my green screen over. Alright, sorry about that. I was having a real hard time focusing. Okay. Ooh, looks like I need to change my filter here. Filters. Chroma key. Similarity. A little bit better. Okay. Cool. Yeah, definitely break symmetry. So you don't have it, exactly down the middle, especially when, same thing with cloth and stuff too. Isn't going to be overly symmetrical. But I think we've gone far enough as far as like talking about like body placement and getting this thing and using Nanomesh stuff. I think we're kind of good to go. So what I may end up doing is just converting this. It'll be a lot easier for me to go through and start twisting this thing around and getting to where I want. And these things aren't overly detailed. So what I'm going to do, another thing we can talk about is maybe putting these arms onto my scene. So really quickly, it looks like it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 along the top and the bottom, and then 1, 2, 3, and then a jumble of them towards the back end here. So we do have an arm mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here, and we can make an insert mesh brush out of this arm. I think that'll work. So let's go out of X symmetry, hold down Control Shift and Alt. And I'm trying to think of the way I want to pull this on. So when I'm putting this on my mesh, I can use Insert Mesh Brush, my camera view, to determine like, do I want it to kind of embed in my mesh as I'm looking at it? So something like this maybe, but I want it to be a little more predictable. So I'm going to kind of maybe do something like this. So I'm going to hit B, create Insert Mesh, New, and then go out of solo mode here. And we can turn on Control Shift and bring this all back. And these little segmented pieces here I don't necessarily need to look at, so I can just turn those off. Those are just placeholder anyway. Oops, this one. Turn it off. There we go. So now these ones have subdivision history, so I'm not going to be able to drag an IMM on them, but this cone doesn't. So I can use this, I can have this selected, and I can use IMM brushes to kind of go through and stick to whatever it is on there. So I'll go back to my brush here, my arm brush, and then we can very quickly go through here, and we can go here, and let's turn on X symmetry. So luckily, we have X symmetry on the head and the cone in the same axis. If we didn't, it wouldn't be a big deal. All you have to do is you can like say take this here, and you can say just one example, you can duplicate this off. We can go down here like to the lowest subdivision level, say delete higher. We can go down to like inflate and just deflate this down. So it's just a proxy sitting inside your mesh, has no subdivision history. And then we can use this mesh to go through and, oops. Oh, looks like we need to flip. oh, you know what? When I deflated it, it did something weird, but I don't really care about that. What I really care about is that it's a it's a mesh that's sitting inside of here that I can use to my insert mesh brush on. So we have our insert mesh brush here. It's just sitting inside there. There's no we can turn X symmetry on it, and then it's just a proxy sitting in there. So let's go ahead and go to our depth here, and we'll say embed at 0. So as we're dragging this on, these things will stay a little closer. So I'm going to go through here, and we can kind of just position these arms like so. And then from the side view, again, if we want to kind of match what we're doing here, so this arm here kind of be out and back and up a little bit maybe. Again, kind of use this as a guide to go through here. And then if I want to pose these out later, I can. I can, like, you know, take this piece here, Control-Shift-A, mask, invert that mask, go here and just kind of set that pivot so I can move this down and around and kind of match this exactly if I want to. But we'll leave that alone for now. So really quickly, we'll just add some more arms to this here. Oops. Brush, arm brush. Something like that. And then along the bottom as well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. What I could do is I could take this and then just drag out a copy of this and then say Control-Shift, Control-Shift-A, Geometry Modified Topology, delete hidden. In fact, we don't even need this piece anymore. Delete hidden. And then Control-Shift, Control-Shift-A. Oops, let's grab our lasso here. Grab all these pieces. Invert that, and then we'll do a mirror in the Y. Drag this down. So now these can kind of fit in here. Bring everything back. Oops. Say flip. Interesting. Not a huge deal. We can just flip those back, I guess. But okay, so now we have these arms and all these different segments. So if I want to, I can grab all these. Control-Shift-A, Control-W, and what this is going to do is allow us to grab these arms, hit W, and then Control-Tap. So we can very quickly go through here and modify just one of these groups. So we'll go through here and kind of position these, and then W, Control-Tap this one. There's an easy way to get your selections without having to go through and do anything fancy. So here, here, here. Yes, yes. And then we can even scale these down a little bit. Looks like the interior ones might be maybe not. These are kind of creepy too. These are like little bottom arms that can kind of caress, you know, this guy here. So interesting. Now there's 3 more arms down the side segments here, and these ones are probably going to move as we go through and refine the body, but we can put them in there as subs for now. So 1, 2, 3 down the segments. And they're kind of just stacked close together. I don't even know that they're and from that side, oh, you know what? From the side view, so from here, they're kind of up close towards the front of the body here, and then from the side view here, I guess they're about in the right place. But it looks like it's about a segment behind. So I'm going to drop these arms back here, and they also look like they're significantly larger. So let's go ahead and go into solo mode here, hit W, Alt Tap. And you know what we can also do? We can also just do like a hide point and a split hidden. So now these are in their own separate subtool. So now we can start a whole new round of these. So now these look like they're kind of angled backwards a bit from about this distance here. And there's 3 of them, and they're pretty big. So I'm going to go ahead and scale these up here. Let me zoom out, see if I, yeah. And then W, Control Drag, and these are stacked pretty close. So Control Drag again, and you could use Nanomesh, you could use Array Mesh, but I think we'll be okay. And again, these are kind of just placeholder as it is. So now one more time, let's grab all these, Control W, grab all these, Control Shift A, Control W, And then we can actually take these, invert, Control W. So now again, we just have a little bit easier access to kind of go through and move, scale, and rotate these on an individual basis, even though they're segmented. Like so. There's also fur on here. Trying to think the best way to kind of do that. What I might do is just do a, you know what? It should be fine. I'm trying to think of the best way to, like, if I want to put fur on these little upper arms here, and I don't want it to necessarily, I want them to be separate polygroups. So you know what I'm going to do? Let's do this. Let's duplicate this off. Make sure when you're doing fiber mesh to go down here to display properties and make sure double is turned off so you don't have fur going inside your object. So we've duplicated this off. We're going to go into solo mode, and then we're going to do a quick auto groups, and then do a quick mirror and weld, and we're just going to take these top portions here and then say delete hidden. If we control tab these, it's just going to add fur to these portions here, so we can go through here and we can say fiber mesh preview, and let's go through here and change these modifiers a bit. Now this is going to be like, they're kind of like brown hair. So for this base, we can actually have it inherit our poly paint, but for now I'm just going to kind of just eyeball it. So I'm going to say maybe a lighter brown to a darker brown here. And let's go in here to our coverage. I'm going to crank up this coverage so it's a little bit of a thicker hair. And also, let's play around with this gravity because I want it to kind of follow these arms back. So I'm going to position these arms so they're kind of pointing in the direction of the gravity I want to go. And then as I go through here, this gravity, I can kind of crank that up, and then I'll kind of take the hair down that direction. So now max fibers, we can probably turn down a bit, and then the coverage up because I want like thick hair. Now, you can see it's kind of flat, and that's because my profile is set to 1. However, when I go to BPR, you're going to see the hair is going to kind of thicken up. Let's turn off polyframe here so you can see a little bit better. It's going to kind of get thicker and a little bit smoother. So if you go in here to the BPR settings, that's where that's happening. It's subdividing it twice, and it's giving me 4 sides. So on render, it'll be a little bit nicer looking. The segments, I'm going to crank up the segments a little bit. That's just basically how many divisions or go down the hair. And then let's go into our length profile, and we'll go ahead and crank up that length just a bit too. So now when you hit BPR, we'll get a nice fur look down the arms, which is about what we would want. Now, of course, we can groom these as needed, which we're going to have to do. Let's also play around with this. Oh, another thing too we need to do is this should be inheriting our polygroup. So if I go through here and I turn off fiber mesh preview, are these all separate polygroups? Yes. So these are all separate polygroups, although these are 2 very similar looking polygroups. There we go. So 3 separate polygroups. When I turn my fiber mesh on, this will inherit those polygroups so I can groom them separately, which will be nice. So I suppose this is okay. If you do want to have actual dimension to your hair, you can actually put alpha cards down these as well. But if you want to go through here in your profile and crank this up to 4, that'll go ahead and give you actual thickness to your hair, like little tubes. It's kind of up to you if you want to just have them tube-like on render, if you want to have them tube-like here. It's kind of up to you. So let's go through here. And this is subdividing it twice, so now that we've added a lot of geometry, you're going to see the difference there. But I think this is fine. Yeah, so we got some hair, and we can go through and start grooming them. So I'm going to go through here, and we're going to say fiber mesh, accept. And then through here, we have our fibers sitting here. So here's our placeholder. We can actually just turn this off, and then we got our fibers here. So we can actually go through and groom these. And we can turn off polypaint if we want to see just the fibers. And we go through BPR, that'll go ahead. This is just like a preview of the fiber. You could turn off that if you want to, but that's what the hair will end up looking like. So we can go in here to like brush groom, and you can go to groom hair toss, and you can also turn on mask by polygroups up to 100. So now you can just groom one of these at a time and not have it interfere. Oh good, they're going to start jackhammering. Almost 8 o'clock on the dot. And when they start jackhammering at my neighbor's house, what that means is my live stream is coming to a close. So we'll go through here and we can kind of go through and groom. So that's a quick way you can kind of do a little fiber mesh and a little bit of groom here. You can also go through here and hold down Shift, and you can smooth. And you can go through. You can actually just use your Move brush if you want to. Let's turn mask by polygroups down to 0 and topological off. You can go through here and you can move, and you can pinch if you want to. It's just geometry. You can go through here with your brush, groom, and clump, or spike. You can go through and just kind of like, you know, put little spikes on here, like they're kind of clumped together. I would go to mask by polygroups up to 100. So you can see we have separate polygroups here. So we can go through here and just kind of, you know, clump these things together and make them nice and gross, like a little furry centipede. And then of course when you go to render, you know, you'll get the nice profile and the segments and stuff like that. So there's that. I guess I should go ahead and do this side here, and we're just kind of going down here. And when you do go through here with your Move brush, you're going to notice that it automatically, where the root of your hair is, or where the closest it is to the mask that you painted, which is generally on the object itself, that's all going to be auto masked, and that's over here. So auto mask, fiber mesh, and this is your mask curve. So the root's going to be fully masked, and then the tip's going to be completely unmasked. You can go through in there and play with that if you want, but when you are in here with your Move brush, that's why you can't. Your base mesh should stay kind of stuck a little bit because you have the auto mask fiber mesh set for that brush. And again, you can go through here and you can smooth and kind of knock the length back a little bit. Use your groom brushes, all that good stuff. You can also turn on your poly paint. You can also go through here and poly paint this as needed. I'm just going to leave that alone for now. And yeah, good enough. I think we get enough for today. Uh-oh. Testing. Oh. My audio seems to be okay. Cool. Let's see if I get caught up here. Cool. Excellent. Thanks for the kind words. Free. Yeah, this is kind of for illustration purposes. We're basically just recreating this little scene here. You can go through here and you can render, and then you can do a paint over any number of cool things you want to do. But we're just kind of setting up a scene here. Now that I'm looking at this all together, these arms seem a little bit big, but those are easy enough just to go through here. And again, you can just mask one of these and kind of scale it down. We have X symmetry turned on, so just going through here and hitting Control and then tapping. So, oh, okay, good. Yeah, they're putting in a pool right across or one of my neighbors is. So, and also we're in Central Texas, which means we have about 4 inches of topsoil and about 300 feet of bedrock. So if you want a basement, that's not going to happen unless you're going to use dynamite. But if you want a pool, they will have to jackhammer for about 3 weeks straight, 9 to 5. Cool. Yeah, for posing, we'll do that on my live stream this Thursday coming up. We'll go through. I'll go ahead and finish this out. Maybe today. Anything I'm doing on the side, I'll go ahead and record so I can do the full thing and just post that on YouTube. But yeah, this stuff can kind of get tedious, where it's like, I'm going to rotate these bodies and then go through here and detail it out. So this I'm probably not going to sit here and stream and do unless. Yeah, I think that'd just be boring. But we'll go through here and put the legs on the back and stuff. Maybe I'll do that sometime today during lunch or something. And I'll record it and then I can speed it up. But, cool. Alrighty. Thanks, everybody. I'll go ahead and sign on out. And